Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Women's Members Excellence Committee of ICI, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Yashaswini, an Idol Series 28. Yashaswini and Idol is a Wednesday series of program conducted by the Committee of Women CAs for the Women CAs and by the Women CAs. This series is an extension of Sky High Symposium, which concluded its 100 episodes. It's one of the committee initiatives to not only disseminate information to women members on technical updation and non technical skills, but also to empower and inspire women members to come at forefront and realize their public speaking skills. For the first session on professional opportunities for CA in NGO sector, we have Ms. Ritu Jain. Ms. Jain is a chartered accountant and CPA USA and a master in tax. Over the decade of experience, she has collaborated with 350 plus NGOs to enhance their financial management. Her expertise extends to creating financial software and co-authoring resources that supports transparent budgeting and resource management. We request Ms. Ritu Jain to please come and join us forward.
Thank you, Deepika, for that lovely introduction. A very warm good afternoon to everyone. Just allow me a minute to share my presentation.
Sure, ma'am.
I hope this is visible.
The screen is
Yes.
visible.
Okay, thank you. Um, I would like to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the ICAI and the Women Members Excellence Committee for providing this wonderful platform. It not only allows professionals like us to share their knowledge and experience, but also foster meaningful connections and networking opportunities. I wanted to highlight that I am the founding member of ARIA CFO Services and ERP for Impact. We have been engaging with the NGO sector since 2013, and we're helping them to scale up and address critical financial management related challenges and compliances. My work with various esteemed clients, such as Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiatives, Quest Alliance, Britspan, Parinam, Under the Mango Tree Society, and many others, has been deeply rewarding. Drawing from this experience, today I will like to highlight the numerous professional opportunities that are available for chartered accountants to make a significant impact and advance their careers in the social sector. I think it's important to know that where professionalism lies when it comes to the social sector and what is the impact that one can create. However, before we deep dive into that, I would like to draw attention to the fact that in 2023, the private giving, which is the donations coming in from various fields, it has reached to an amount of 1.2 lakh crores. This number definitely signifies how big the sector is and how willingly people are ready to contribute, provided they get the support the NGOs are to provide. And one of the best ways that NGOs can ensure that this amount that the donors are giving is taken in good hands is to build in their trust and transparency. The NGOs 100% need to be as transparent as possible and also be as like an open book so that it enables anyone and everyone who is inclined towards their projects, towards their programs, to support them and help them scale up. This is the reason why I think as chartered accountants, strongly feel we have a place, a presence that can be met with this expectation. And the biggest place that we feel we already have the skill sets as being chartered accountants is compliance. Compliance has been a very big part of us right from the beginning of studying the CA exams to fulfilling certain terms, conditions required to deliver this professionalism. And this not only stops at just corporates or for-profit scenario. A lot of nonprofits, when they scale up, one of the biggest thing that they're scaling up also is the financial management sector or the financial management department with which they're working. And I would like to shed some light on a very, very high level. What are the some compliances that any organization, be it a nonprofit, be it a trust society, a Section 8, will probably have to go through? And with that, I think I would like to start with three ways to looking at compliance. They're into three brackets here. The first one being central laws, the second one, employee related laws, and the third, state specific laws. It's important that we identify if we're dealing with any particular compliance, which particular category does it belong to, because the laws, rules, regulations, and the governing body will differ based on this bracket. Let's pick up the first one that we're talking about. It's the central law. The very first one is the Income Tax Act. I think this we all must be familiar with. There is a place where all not-for-profits, they need to get themselves registered so that they get the exemption. They also need to file their income tax returns. And along with that, there are several rules under Section 11, 12, 13 governing what a charitable trust needs to follow or charitable activities are defined as. This is a place where, though the income tax is quite vast, it enables us to concentrate on few sections and gain the expertise required to assist the NGOs as far as the Income Tax Act is concerned. A very specific law that's put in the Act, it's known as the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, is meant for any kind of foreign donation that's going to come into the country. They need to follow certain rules, regulations as laid down under this Act and rules. And it is a strict adherence to this compliance, which enables NGOs to not only tap into the funding from domestic, but also from the foreign sources. And again, this is an act which has lots of conditions, terms that requires someone to spend substantial amount of time to read through it, to go through it, to read the case laws that are undergoing, and also help NGOs in what direction they should document things, they should file, and move on. Similar to this, there's the other act known as the Corporate Social Responsibility, the CSR. This is a place where it's mandatory now for certain corporates to donate under CSR for certain activities and projects as laid down in Schedule 7. This is also a place where majority of the corporates, given that they are dealing with a substantial amount, it is important that they also have confidence in how the NGOs to which they are donating and they're becoming the implementing agencies are able to fulfill these certain rules, regulations governing this fund that they're receiving. So this also enables a chartered accountant to look into this particular act and bring in their expertise and experience and help NGOs be compliant and help corporates be compliant with this. The fourth is the Companies Act. In this case, if you as an NGO is registered under Section 8, you will be required to comply with various conditions and terms which are laid down under the Companies Act. The fifth is GST. Now, this particular one, in the beginning, when we used to start practicing, there was a normal assumption that maybe GST is not applicable to the NGOs. However, that's not true. In any given situation, if any organization is providing services or delivering the goods, it's important to examine and evaluate whether your organization, which is an NGO, whether GST is applicable or not. They have stated few services where it is exempt, but as a blanket rule, we would not say that it's not applicable. So there's a place where expertise is required to conclude whether GST is to be included or not for any kind of services that the NGO is providing. And the sixth is POSH. I'm very fortunate to be joined by Ms. Nidhi, who will be having the session next regarding POSH. And again, this is a place where it's applicable to the NGOs as well. Now, this was about the central law that we were talking. What's next is paying some attention to employee related and state laws. I think most of these are commonly used across corporates as well, across the for profits, wherein it depends on the employees that are associated with an organization. So you will look at the Provident Fund Act, you will look at ESIC, PT, gratuity, stop and establishment as a rule where you have employed any employees which are crossing the applicability rules that are given here. It is irrespective of whether you're an NGO or not, these rules will still be applicable. And hence the expertise is required for professionals who have got enough experience in dealing with these rules, regulations, and helping them out with paperwork, with any kind of appearance required in front of these law governing officers. Along with that, NGOs also have, other than the Section 8, there is a place where they are governed by the state laws if they are enabled trust or society. So it's important not only to see where these rules, regulations are applicable to NGOs, but also in which state are you registered, what are the rules, regulations that are required to be followed by an entity. This was more on compliance front. And as the time passed by, this is one area that NGOs definitely need support, and they need experts who have deeper understanding of various laws, rules, regulations. Now, beyond this, I think we as RSUFO services have identified few areas which definitely need professionals to come in and bring in their expertise and support in various ways to the social sector. One of the opportunities that we have is the statutory audit. I think as required by law, the NGOs, when they need to apply for the exemptions, they need to go through the statutory audit. And here the rules that are required for an NGO are also slightly different than the for-profit scenarios. There are various forms that the auditor needs to fill in and which are very specific to the NGO sector, to the charitable nature of the activities. So one need to know that if you're trying to support an organization with the statutory audit requirement, it is important to have certain kind of an experience where you'll have dealt with NGO related audits, or try to gain some sort of experience, some sort of exposure on what is truly required for one to audit an NGO. Similar to that is the internal audit. It depends on how one is defining the requirements of an internal audit, but it's very much also required by NGOs, more so because if it is dependent on resources and funding that's coming from outside of their organization, it is important to know how internally things are managed, and if a third party can give an assurance that so far how the rules, regulations are required to be followed have been maintained, then they know that there is chance for them to scale up, grow, expand along with their programs and projects. The third bit is due diligence, and this is very specific to the NGOs. In this scenario, because the donors are the ones who are giving grants and specific conditions are required to be met, certain milestones are required to be achieved by an NGO, it is important that there are professionals who are able to convince and provide documentations on how an NGO is conducting their activities, maintaining the required documentation, the transparency that we spoke about earlier, and communicate that to the donors. Many a times, apart from the compliance, it's also important of how the approval matrix or the authorizations are taking place, related party transactions. There are a lot of detailing that may be required when you look from the lens of the donors to ensure the trust that they need for the NGOs to capture what is committed as funding and how are they spending, how they're utilizing it is communicated in a professional way. Similarly, there are a lot of CSR and FCRA audits. Here, they're very specific pertaining to the laws governing the CSR and FCRA. Many a times for corporates, they do land up, donating to an organization beyond a year. And it's important to capture how they're looking at their vision and how is it matching with the mission of the NGOs. So along with the paperwork, along with how the money is being, spent and utilized, there are a lot of various other angles that needs to be looked at when it comes to giving from a certain perspective and how you're receiving it. FCRA plays a very important role in any professional to identify how and when the money is going to be received and for what purpose, and then how is it being utilized. There are stringent rules, regulations where one needs to definitely put across their intention and then go ahead and spend. This requires not only a program person or a person who's heavily inclined towards the objects of the organization, but also you need a professional who can see from this other lens of compliance and terms conditions fulfillment and provide a report on this. And apart from this, there are advisory services which can be taken up either from the corporates or the donors or for the NGOs. Many a times we have seen that the law may have different interpretations, and it is the way we or as NGOs would like to say the way they are thinking about it. They need help with documenting and putting the intentions down, and because of which then they can move forward with certain decisions that they're making. All these services are possible to deliver only when an individual or profession has in-depth knowledge of what needs to be provided to the NGOs. There's another list of opportunities that we have identified where it is extremely important that if you strongly feel that you want to be part of an organization and help them scale up and help them grow into multiple folds, what are the things that one can do to support the sector? One of them being internal controls. As far as internal controls are concerned, it not only is looking into how a transaction is, taking different phases, but it's also what are certain rules, what are certain boundaries that an organization needs to maintain to ensure that there is no place or room to make wrong assumptions, or there's no place where there's something where intentions were different and how it is being conducted is different. And this is where the internal controls come in the picture, which brings in different set of people from different departments and collaborate together and understand how a certain flow of transaction or certain decision is being made and what are the criteria that one should look at. One of the biggest things that we encourage to look into when it's internal controls are policies and systems and processes that an organization is following. Sometimes policies can be very straightforward, and many times, if it is not curated as per the practical approach of the organization, it may land the organization into trouble. Something simple as maybe who needs to authorize at a certain level, at a certain scale, or a certain amount will be different for different organizations. So it is important that when somebody is looking into policies, processes, systems, they're not only looking at a very general industry standard, but they're also deep diving into truly what is required by the NGOs to ensure that they're able to get the support that is needed. Another big area which NGOs 100% need support in looking at various angles and various perspectives is budgeting. Typically, I think there was a place where most of the NGOs used to think that whatever amount that they're getting as donations, they will use it for projects and systems. But as the years have been passing by and the professionalism coming in, and also the vision and the mission of the organization drives this factor, we highly encourage that NGOs should have their internal budget first, their organization budget, and there should be good enough time spent in deriving this budget. This is the place which helps NGOs know exactly what is the amount, what is the resources required, and the time that is required to reach to the position that they are anticipating. And once they do the budgeting, it's only then that their decision making power is getting stronger and stronger. And while we do this budgeting, this is where our expertise as chartered accountants come in. We need to encourage and enable them to think of cost not just simply as one number, but to come up with sheets and different tools using or enabling them to think about how a cost can be broken down into a fixed cost, variable cost, different ways of looking at cost, different drivers which one should take into factor while thinking of scaling up or reaching to a particular number of beneficiaries. There are various ways that one can break down this budgeting activity, but this requires professionals, this requires people who have the experience to convert someone's vision or mission into numbers and then allow them to track it, monitor it, and see how is the progress so far. That's very, very essential for organizations when they do plan to expand and understand what is the commitment that they're going for and what is their ask to the donors. Another crucial part that the CS can support is incorporation and registration. There's a very interesting way to look at it. Few years ago, when an NGO used to get their 12A ATG registration, it was for perpetuity. And right now, the way the law is, every 5 years, an NGO needs to renew this. And this is a place where it's encouraging NGOs and everybody around this circle to ensure that if every 5 years somebody is going to question as to what are the activities that have undertaken in the 5 years, are you following your trust deed? Are you following your MOA? Are you following certain terms, conditions laid out? It encourages the people who are supporting the social sector to also know that this is, if anything, going towards professionalism, this is going towards transparency, this is going towards good governance. So there is definitely a lot of opportunity that we see when it comes to this kind of a process, where one needs to have deeper knowledge of what is required to be compliant and what are the different registrations and the timing of making these returns filed. It's very important that we do not miss out on the dates that are given by the organizations, given by by the Income Tax Act, because the repercussions of misguiding them or giving wrong information has a big impact on their registration certificates. So it leads to a place where we highly encourage anyone and everyone who's looking into this particular sector to have that in-depth knowledge and encourage people who are looking forward for professionals to support this. Another part which is very interesting and dynamic is capacity building. Many a times that we have seen as professionals, once we do get the expertise and experience in the field, we land up, if we are just sticking to few organizations, and there are only few organizations who are going to benefit out of it. The way we look at it is that if there is a scope to continuously build the capacity of organizations, of resources, people who are into this particular sector or this financial management department, we would like to bring in this capacity building, wherein we conduct workshops, webinars, we help accountants understand what's a basic way of addressing different donors and different projects and how the tracking needs to be done. How do you come up with your utilization certificates, different MIS? This is the place where we can continuously keep strengthening the internal team of the NGOs who are providing this support, who are taking up the role and the responsibility of ensuring that the funds that are coming in are also utilized in the manner it's supposed to. And another element that we have managed to identify is something known as the CFO services. NGOs, many a times, the founders, the leaders, they are driven by the social impact that the organization is going to do. And it's very rare that they have a full-fledged financial management department, which is also growing as they are growing in their objects. This is where sometimes when there is a gap in what is required and maybe the scale at which they are moving, the organization is moving, we as professionals can step in and provide the CFO services that we have. This includes not only just the basic accounting, bookkeeping, compliance, but also a lot of strategies that one can help organizations think about their future plans, think about how to be compliant, think about what kind of transactions that one can get into, or what are the different ways that one should ensure the risks that are associated with the charitable nature are covered. So there's a lot of scope here in terms of being fractional CFO is what we call, where maybe not as a full-time CFOs that you need to be there, but you can be CFOs at multiple NGOs and help them understand what does it take to run a not-for-profit and be compliant throughout the journey. I think with this, I have covered most of the opportunities that we have identified as being in the sector for over a decade. Along with this, another huge play that comes into is technology. So most of the times, yes, there are certain systems processes that needs to be reviewed, looked at. But if an organization can leverage the use of technology, then the systems that we are looking at, things that we have to review, if it is automated, then the time required to understand, analyze, decide is shortened, and also the chances of errors are minimalized. Keeping this in mind is how ERP for Impact was also created. It is a software which enables not only the NGOs, but also the outsiders, which includes donors and auditors, to come into this one platform and see how an organization is receiving the funds, how are they spending the funds, how are they tracking it, along with several audit logs, documentation at the same place, as well as the MIS or the dashboards that one can create to help all the stakeholders, including the board members, the advisories, also the auditors, to understand what were the reasons and how things were decided. And the logs help us to be compliant with what is required. So technology also plays a huge role in enabling organizations to support what is required to be transparent and build the trust. Now, there has to be a reasoning why we are talking about the sector and why should one support this sector. First being is that there is a huge chance for anyone to professionally grow. Reason being is that there was a point where CBI had conducted a study, and a data was released by them in 2015, wherein they identified around 31 lakh NGOs all across India. This probably may include any form of entities, unstructured, maybe inoperative, but the number speaks a lot of what it is. It is literally one NGO for 400 people. However, when the government released the portal known as Darpan, which requires NGOs to register in events of seeking government grants or FCRA registrations, they need to obtain a unique ID. And we were surprised at this point, as on today, there are lesser than 2.5 lakh NGOs were registered. So there's definitely a gap. And we personally feel one of the major reasons of this gap is most of the NGOs are not even aware of what is it that's required to be compliant, and hence they go unrecognized, unstructured, not legally formed. So there are groups of people who probably are doing the social good, but in rural parts of India, especially, there is a gap that we have seen that not many professionals are available, not many professionals are there who are fully aware of what the rules, regulations are there to govern the sector. This is where we felt the strong need that, given the gap, it is important for professionals like us to fill in and help support the larger goal, which is the societal well-being. It's through this particular, being in the sector, it enables you to not only enhance your skill sets and your expertise as chartered accountants, but it enables you to get a sense of purpose, fulfillment of what their energy and efforts are going in. And also, it helps you to broaden up your expertise and experience. We have identified and noticed that there are very few, a very handful of known professionals who are in the sector who have gone into detailing and deep dive into what is truly required as a professional to support. So we do see that there is a place, to match up to the demand and supply that we're talking. And if given the right efforts, the right direction, there are endless ways to encourage and be a part of this sector. The other ways that we felt it's important to address how one can think about entering, this sector, or what are the things that one can, even start just to understand how the sector is looking like. Um, we ourselves started off with volunteering. That's one part which is extremely, I would say, easy to start with. It gives you an experience of how NGOs think, what are the priorities for them, and on what basis do they take a decision. So for me, my journey started as I got an opportunity to volunteer with American Red Cross when I was in Chicago. And I think it was that experience which not only gave me the sense of fulfillment, but also where my skill sets were matched to greater doing of the society. And so volunteering is definitely one approach that one can start with. The other ways that we look at is there are webinars, there are capacity building workshops. Keep reading and updating yourself with laws, rules, regulations, and especially with the changes that are happening with the world and the emergence of ESG, the CSR law that we're talking about. There is a need for people to focus on the societal well-being. And peer learning plays a huge role because there are very few selected professionals right now who are driving this. We strongly believe there has to be a collaborative approach, an approach where people are learning from the experience and sharing that learning. And through that, I mean, lesser mistakes are committed, experience is building onto it, and organizations and NGOs are the ones who are benefiting out of this. What we wanted to bring in is the list of few experts that we reach out to or we look up to when we want to enhance our knowledge and skills when it comes to this sector. We've been into RSEF and ERP for Impact has been into the sector for over 10 years now. The Center for Advancement of Philanthropy, where there is extreme, it's just a place where you get great blogs and information on how the laws are and what is the interpretation and views on it. LegAtax is another platform which has n number of case laws and case studies listed down, which supports NGOs to take a decision based on certain rules that were laid out. There is FMSF. Even this is a great platform which has great opportunities to participate in webinars, workshops. They believe a lot in capacity building, and they are on top of it when it comes to updates and changes in the rules. There's Account Aid as well, which provides a good insight in what the intention is of the law, and specifically when it comes to FCRA, there is a place where you can rely on, and you can go forward with it. So these are the different skill sets and places that are required for an individual like us to support the sector. With this, I mean, I am concluding my presentation about what are the different opportunities that we have for individuals like us and to be a bigger part of the society. I would love if there are any questions, or anybody would want to say or share the experience if they've been a part of an NGO, anything that substantiates the reason why one should consider this sector would be great.
Thank you, C. Ritu Jain. I think with your over a decade of experience with NGOs, we were able to reach out to our fellow colleagues over there who are actually trying to be associated with NGOs. So thank you for letting us know that in spite of, not only the regular CA services that we provide in terms of statutory and internal audit, there are also budgeting, internal controls, and CFO services that we can take up. Moving to the questions that we have from audience. The first question we have is from CA Vandana, who asks, is there a limit to number of NGOs we can handle as a CFO?
As a CFO?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, from my experience, yes, if you're a team as an individual, and it goes to speak a lot on what your commitment is to an NGO. The way I look at it is, if you're able to identify that I need to spend, say, 2 days or 3 days in a week to this NGO, then there is a place where you can definitely manage to 2 or 3 CFO roles. But it is highly driven by what is expected. We also have scenarios where we have CAs who are full time only at one NGO, and they are doing this as their committed full-time job as well. So it's driven by what is committed.
All right. Thank you, Ritu. I hope we've answered your question, Vandana. Moving on to the next question, and the last question we have from Sangeeta Gulati. Now, this is not really related to NGOs, but I think this is very relevant to all the women colleagues out here. How does one balance between the professional and personal life, especially for women?
Thank you. I mean, it is definitely relevant, as you said. We are in a situation where, yes, to be an expert and to have this experience, it requires a lot of dedication and a lot of time, I would say. But it's also coming out of passion. So the way for me, what has worked, and I also have a 7-year-old son and a family where I'm living in a joint family, and there are a lot of members. And I know at times it's the commitment that you have to decide what is a priority. But I'm very fortunate that I do have a very strong team around me where we have a very open space of communicating and being as transparent as possible to share what is going on at our personal end, because that I think enables an environment where we're not shying away from how we're looking at work, we're not shying away on how we feel of family, and we're not prioritizing one thing just to prove to another. It is a place where we've created an environment where as a team we can pick up and prioritize. So it is, I think, a lot to do with the environment that you're creating around you. If it is conducive, I feel not only for women but also for men, it goes a long way in supporting each other. And my personal preference is to find that environment first. Once if that environment is there, things fall in place.
Beautifully said, Ritu. I think we're not prioritizing one over the other. We're trying to create a balance with a very supportive work environment and also a very supportive family at our end. Thank you, Ritu. I think that is the end of our questions. Thank you so much for being here and giving us this insightful topic today. Moving on to handing over to Purva Mittal to take this forward.
Thank you, Ritu, for such a wonderful session. It was really nice one. Let me introduce to our new speaker, next speaker, Nidhi Dalvi. Nidhi is a legal associate at a leading firm specializing in laws related to women and children. She conducts workshops on the prevention of sexual harassment and code of conduct and has developed post certificate courses. With experience as a legal researcher, she facilitates post compliances, including training for employees and internal committees, particularly for Indian employees of foreign based entities. Her work underscores her commitment to foresighting safe and inclusive work environment for all individuals. Nidhi, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Purva, for the introduction. I'll just share my screen and then start with the introduction. Give me 1 minute. Is my screen visible? Can anybody please confirm if it is visible?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is
Thank you
visible.
so much. So, I'll just start quickly by introducing myself and my company. I am Nidhi Darvi and I am a lawyer by profession. I am here on behalf of Rainmaker Online Training Solutions. My company specializes in training and imparting trainings on corporates and any other organization on topics related to culture and compliance at workplace. Some of the topics being POSH, anti bribery, anti corruption, data protection and privacy, DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I have been personally associated with Rainmaker for the past 2 years now. I have conducted over 100 workshops across topics like POSH, ABAC, human rights, code of conduct. I also draft policies for multiple organizations. I've also drafted certificate courses on POSH. And I'm really excited to be here and be a part of with this session. And I'm really looking forward to getting as many questions as I can. Please do not hesitate. Ask me any questions. This will be, I'm sure, conveyed to me through our box here. So yes, so without further ado, let me start with the session. As everybody here knows that POSH is applicable to all the workplaces, especially to places where there are 10 or more employees. Every company needs to have a policy and an internal committee who has 10 or more employees. So yes, it's also about this. Also for people who are working independently, for them, there are local complaints committees, which are also called as local committees now after the amendment. And whatever I'm going to discuss now is applicable to both organized sectors and unorganized sectors. So even if you are practicing as an independent professional, this will be applicable to you. You will be protected under this particular act. Let's start by understanding what is harassment first, and then let's move on to sexual harassment because in the POSH Act, only sexual harassment cases are covered when an internal committee takes up a complaint. Okay, it can take up complaints only from women and only when it is sexual harassment. So, first, let's understand what is harassment so that we can establish the difference between harassment and sexual harassment. The first one, I hope everybody can see the screen. Please let me know if there's any disturbance or interruptions during the call. So, yes, harassment. There are different types of harassment. Let's discuss a few here. I'm going to discuss three. I'm going to give you examples. First is forms of discrimination. Now, we all know there are different types of discrimination like gender based discrimination, racial discrimination. Let's say is economic discrimination, that discrimination based on region. Let's say in an office there was a person who has come from southern part of the country and that person doesn't actually understand our language, and this person is trying to gel in, is trying to have a conversation, but everybody starts boycotting this person because they don't want to change their preferences. Now, this kind of a behavior could definitely lead to some form of harassment to this person, because that person might feel excluded, that person might not want to come to office every day, right? So these kind of differences or discriminatory behavior could also lead to a complaint of harassment, and usually in the companies it goes to the HR or a disciplinary committee that is available. So yes, that's one form of discrimination. Other discrimination like gender discrimination, I really need not talk about that. There is also favoritism. Let's say there were two people in one team, and the manager, had to rate these people for the performances. So this person, without giving due regard to their work, actually goes ahead and promotes a person who has a good rapport with him. Okay, and he did not consider the merits and everything. So that kind of discrimination based on favoritism or friendships or rapport within the team, that is something that definitely can affect somebody's mental health. Which brings me to the other topic, or rather other form of harassment, that is unwanted or unwelcome behavior, which could be threatening, which could be humiliating. If I don't like somebody's work and I have somebody in my team, can I go up to that person and say, how stupid can you be? I don't understand who hired you in my team, in my company. Even if it was said politely, the words do matter. Now, these kind of things can also lead to a complaint of harassment. Here, the element of sexual nature is missing, and that is why this is not sexual harassment, unless, of course, it is a continuing offense. That is, somebody has asked a favor out of their junior, and that junior has refused. So they say, okay, you refused it, that is okay. But then during the work, if they are taking out their anger or they are trying to seek revenge against this person on the basis of the rejection that they had to face for a sexual favor, then maybe it could be considered as a continuing offense, that particular harassment. But every case is different. So, depending on your situation, you can definitely approach the HR if you feel harassed. If you feel sexually harassed, you can approach internal committee. As I said, every company who has 10 or more employees can approach the internal committee. However, if you are an independent practitioner, every district has a local committee and you can go and approach the local committee of your district. Next is a behavior that disturbs or upsets somebody. Let's say you're sitting in a cabin and you are working on a document, okay, and you give that document to one of your interns who has come here to learn from you. You tell that person that, hey, just go through this document and understand from it how it is done. This was the assignment that you had given, and while you were sitting in the cabin and while that person was also there in the cabin, you start with a virtual meeting. Okay, that meeting goes really bad. It was a meeting with the client, and after the meeting you are furious, so you just shut your laptop. Then you also start kicking your chair. You There was a bottle in your hand, let's say you threw it across the cabin, and you start hurling abuses at the laptop. In this entire process of venting your anger, you in no way have hurt the intern who was sitting there in front of you. However, that person has seen you do all of this. Do you think this person will feel harassed? Can they file a complaint of harassment? Think about it. The answer could be different for different people. Some people might say, yes, definitely that person has seen, that person could feel impacted. If I was in that situation, I would have felt impacted. All of these things could be running through your mind. Some people might say, no, it won't affect me because it did not hurt me, and the other person has the right to vent their anger the way they want to. Okay, there could be multiple opinions on this. However, what we have to understand is everybody's threshold is different. Everybody has their own subjective experiences, their capacity to take a particular uh, situation at hand could differ. And in fact, the same person could react differently on different days, to the same situation. So that could also happen. So you always have to think that everybody's threshold is different. Sorry, is somebody saying something? Okay, I think it was Valisleep. So yes, uh, there is subjectivity. But the answer to this question, that can that intern file a complaint against me? The answer is yes. She can definitely approach the HR of the company. She can, if I am hurling abuses, she can also take other measures. She can go and file a report against this, for public nuisance and all of that. So that can happen. Because for the people who may think that no, yaar, how can she file a complaint? How that intern can file a complaint? Because in this entire process, I did not hurt that person directly. So for them, I would say that I had given her a document to go through, right? That was the assignment. Let's say there were a couple of mistakes in that document, and that document was supposed to be sent immediately to the client after the meeting. Do you think that person will have the guts to come up to me at that time and say that, ma'am, Nidhi, you have committed so and so mistake, please immediately rectify before sending it to the client? No, the answer is that person might wait for me to calm down. That person might wait uh, and think twice even before coming to me and asking that, ma'am, is this a mistake? Because that person is an intern. So here you think that your actions won't impact the other person even if you have not said or done anything directly to them. But no, even witnessing it could lead to an impact. And that is why we always say that you cannot control the impact that you have on the other person. You can always control your actions. So whenever we are present in a professional setup, whether in your personal office or in the company, make sure that we don't vent our anger in front of our colleagues, in front of our juniors in this manner, because they do have the right to feel harassed and they could feel harassed. So yes, that was about harassment. Here, the element of sexual connotation, that's not present. Now let's quickly move on to what is called as sexual harassment. But before that, I'm going to play a video for all of you. Now, there are some glimpses of our e-modules. Rainmaker also imparts such trainings through e-modules, not only through workshops. So yes, a few glimpses from these modules have been taken. I'll just start playing it. Please let me know if you're not able to hear this video. I hope everyone was able to see this video. Now, in this video, we have covered 5 different types of sexual harassment, which are again covered in the act itself. Now, to give you the definition of sexual harassment, I could sum it up in 2 sentences. That is, sexual harassment under the act could be any unwelcome act. Whether it was done directly, indirectly, that wouldn't matter. If it is unwelcome to you, if it has sexual connotation, then it will be considered as sexual harassment. So the scope is really wide, really broad, and these are the types of sexual harassment that I'm going to discuss one by one. First one is the physical contact or advances. Now, I think everybody here understands what is physical contact. Let's say we all were standing for a photo after an event, and some cameraman just asks us to pose for this photo, and we were standing in a group. One of your colleagues or one of the person who knows you in that event comes too close to you and puts his hand over your shoulder. In that case, do you think that will be considered as sexual harassment? Some people will say, no, that's okay. I know that person. I'll be fine with it. But some people whose threshold is not that high, whose experiences at home or at, growing up are different, they might not be comfortable with that kind of a touch. Now, if somebody without consent is actually keeping their hand on your shoulder, even if, let's say, there was no, they did not show clear intention of sexually harassing you, but you somewhere felt uncomfortable, then definitely that gives, if you felt sexually harassed, then definitely you will have the right to go ahead and file a complaint with the internal committee for sexual harassment. It always depends on the impact and not the intention. What happens is there are multiple times where the person who has actually done this, okay, who has actually touched you, will always say, oh, but it was not my intention to sexually harass you. Or when it goes to the IC, they'll take the defense, oh, but I thought she is my friend. I didn't know that she'll not be comfortable with that, but I was, just wanting to, keep hands for the photo and nothing else. But no, what IC considers mainly is the impact that was there on the person, the aggrieved woman. So, yes, even that kind of a touch definitely could lead to a complaint of sexual harassment. If at all the person has actually, who was at the receiving end, has felt sexually harassed. That was physical contact. Let's talk about physical advances. Now, this is a little different from physical contact. Here, there is no contact, not always. Even coming too close to your person could be considered as sexual harassment under the act. Let's say there was a bottle, that was kept next to me, next to my desk, and there was a person, my colleague, sitting next to me, and the bottle was in front of that person. What I do is to take my bottle, I go too close to that person and then take my bottle. I did not touch that person. I did not have the intention to get too close to that person. But if that person feels sexually harassed, if that person feels very uncomfortable with that kind of an approach, with that kind of closeness, then definitely that person will have the right to go ahead and file the complaint. Usually, in practical scenarios, in first instance, most people will give the benefit of doubt. But if it happens multiple times, then definitely that person will go ahead and file a complaint. In fact, that person has the right, even if it happened in the first instance, then also, if that person is sure and felt sexually harassed, they can definitely go up to the internal committee and talk to them about it. The facts of the case will obviously be determined by the IC once the investigation starts. But yes, the woman will definitely have the right. Some people might think, okay, but this is far fetched, but let's put yourself in that situation, and let's say there was a man instead of me. and that person comes too close to you to take that bottle without touching you, but has invaded your personal space, then you might feel uncomfortable. Let's say there was a person standing next behind me, and I was working on an Excel sheet and was struggling with a formula. That person, under the guise of helping me, just comes too close to my laptop and me, bends over me, and then uses my mouse or my touchpad or uses my keyboard by coming too close to me. Even that kind of situation could lead to a feeling of sexual harassment, right? So definitely I will have the right to approach the internal committee in this case also. So that was physical contact or advances. Now let's quickly see what is demand or request for sexual favor. Now this usually happens in a power matrix situation where one person has more power over the other. Let's say I wanted leave and I go up to my manager and say that I want leave on so and so dates. The manager says that definitely you can get this leave, but tomorrow you will have to come with me on a dinner date. Only then will I give you this leave. Do you think that can lead to sexual harassment? The answer to this is yes. Anything in exchange of my employment benefit, if it is not a part of my JD, I'm not bound by it. And here, if that person is asking me out on a date, on a dinner date, even if it is in a public place, I'm not obliged to do that, right? I can feel sexually harassed. Next time, will I ever go up to that manager and ask anything from him? No. Or even her, it could be a woman also, a woman manager asking this to another subordinate woman. That can also happen. They might think it's an innocent ask. They might think that asking somebody to wear a sleeveless blouse and a red sari for a client meeting to impress the client, this is not a sexual favor for me, but it is just to impress the client. But even that could make that kind of an ask could also make me feel sexually harassed, right? So definitely for even this ask, I can go up to the internal committee. Nobody can ask me to do something that is not a part of my job description, and that is something that is coming from their fantasies or their sexual needs. So definitely demand or request for sexual favor, even if it is a request that please can you come with me out on a dinner date, or please can you come over to my place this night. Even that word please doesn't make it a good experience for the person who is at the receiving end. So definitely that can be considered as sexual harassment. That person did it, didn't do it, that person went for that dinner, didn't go for that dinner, would not matter. Even if that person went for the dinner because they were in desperate need for that leave, we don't know what kind of problems they face at their home. Many women today are the sole breadwinners for their families, and in order to secure their jobs they end up going for such dinners, even if they don't want to go, just because they want that leave to take care of their child, to take care of anybody at their home, right? Who are the caregivers. So they might end up doing all of these things, but that doesn't mean that they cannot go ahead and file a complaint in the internal committee, because the law also recognizes that there are situations where a person cannot say no to certain things. They have to do it, but doesn't mean we can take away the right to file such complaints. Next is making sexually colored remarks. Let's say there is a person in a cafeteria whose name is Sheila, and five people from the office, whenever they go to that cafeteria and whenever Sheila is present, they sing a song. I think everybody who is listening to this definitely must have guessed this song. It is an item number from Bollywood, and the name is Sheila Ki Jawani. Let's say they sing that in front of Sheila whenever they go to uh, the cafeteria and she is present. The answer is then definitely that Sheila will have the right to file a complaint with the internal committee, because this is an item song. There is a woman who is getting objectified. It is a Bollywood number. It obviously has sexual connotation to it. So yes, uh, if even if her name was, let's say, Munni, okay, and people are singing an item song to her, then also that person will definitely have the right to go ahead and file a complaint with the internal committee. Next is showing pornography. Here, everybody is an adult. We all know what is pornography. Doesn't mean we can share it with our colleagues, with a person who we have a professional relationship, or for that matter, anyone. It could be inappropriate, but especially at a workplace, even if it is an independent firm or independent professional, sharing any kind of obscene photo can also be considered as sexual harassment. What happened in one of the cases, I would like to share one interesting thing. There was an employee who used to get on a video call, on a virtual call with one of our colleagues, and whenever that colleague used to switch on his camera, there was a photo of a woman in a bikini, like it was a half naked woman. And this woman was and this girl who filed the complaint, she was never comfortable with that. She had also told him multiple times, please just change your angle or just remove that picture, whatever else, because I'm not comfortable seeing that photo. But that person didn't actually listen, and this girl actually came ahead and filed a complaint with the internal committee, and this was considered as sexual harassment. So whatever makes you uncomfortable, whatever that has sexual connotation to it, will definitely qualify, uh, you know, as sexual harassment at the workplace. So yes, that's showing pornography. Next is any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct. Now, here we have already seen what is physical, we have already seen what is verbal. Now, let's talk about non-verbal. Now, this could include acts like whistling at somebody, or it could even include staring. Now, staring could make people very uncomfortable. Somebody is giving you an elevated look, ऊपर से नीचे कोई देख रहा है, या फिर there could be instances where somebody is doing some arm gestures or facial expressions which are vulgar in nature. So, definitely, all of these things could be covered under the definition of sexual harassment. You see how broad the definition is. Anything under the sun which is unwelcome and which has sexual connotation to it, whether done directly or indirectly, can be considered as sexual harassment. So, yes, that's sexual harassment for you under the POSH Act. Now, let's move on to the concept of who can file a complaint. Now, here, many people think that the act is gender inclusive, gender neutral, but the act is meant for women. Every woman who is present at the workplace can file a complaint with the internal committee of that company if they face sexual harassment. Uh, so yes, the name of the act is the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. So yes, only women are protected against sexual harassment at the workplace under this act. So yes, let's take a look at who all are covered. Like when we say woman, what do we understand by that? Employees of the company, definitely. But can the consultants be covered under this? The answer is definitely. It's not just the employees, it is also the interns or the consultants who are at the who are working at the company or for the company. So I understand most of you are CAs. You must be working as a consultant. You must be working in an independent capacity with any of the companies. So if any of the company member sexually harasses you, you can definitely approach the internal committee of that company. We'll also tell you within how many days your complaint will be taken into consideration, or rather will be concluded. All of that we'll cover in some time, but know that if you are working with a company and if that employee of the company sexually harasses you, you can go to the internal committee of that company. And if that company doesn't have an internal committee, you can go to the local committee of your district. Next is visitors. Now, even if you are visiting a particular company, not in the capacity of an employee, not in the capacity of any employee, employee related function, but you're just visiting a particular company, office premise, and if you get sexually harassed by one of their employees where you're visiting, then you still will have the right to file a complaint with the internal committee. Even vendors and clients. Now, most of you must also be going as auditors. I have heard that CAs have been going and visiting places in the capacity of an auditor. There, many people face sexual harassment, some lewd comments, and all of that. You don't have to tolerate any of that. You can straight away go to the internal committee of the company. Internal committee has powers akin to a civil court, and it is a statutory body. That is, it is a committee that is constituted under the law. वो कोई airy gairy committee नहीं है. It's not just any random committee that a company sets up. It has powers akin to a civil court. So yes, the answer is any woman who is present at the workplace can file a complaint. Now, this brings me to my next question. After COVID 19, virtual workspaces have become a reality. In fact, today, you are sitting in the capacity of a CA. I am here as a trainer taking this virtual workshop. If I sexually harass somebody, or if one of you sexually harasses me, then what happens? Because we are not, this is not an in-person workshop. It is a virtual workshop. You are sitting at your home, I'm sitting at my home, and all of that. So can I file a complaint if one of you sexually harassed me? Here, the answer is yes. Because here we are coming together for our work. This is my workplace. This is your workplace. You must be representing one organization. I'm representing one organization. So, yes, definitely I can go up to your organization's internal committee and file a complaint. You also have to remember that the respondent's internal committee gets the jurisdiction in these cases. So, yes, respondent means the person who is accused in the case. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, yes, even virtual workspaces are considered as a workplace under the POSH Act. So, yes, these are the places. Let's say two colleagues from an organization are traveling in a cab to reach a particular office, or let's say they are in a local train and one colleague sexually harasses the other colleague during that travel to that particular office. Even in those conditions, they have the right to approach the internal committee that, my colleague sexually harassed me while we were traveling. Even if it was a party, let's say there were five people in this call who were friends who met after a long time, and they decide, and these all are from the same organization. And let's for example think about it. And all five of them who were the employees of the same organization after this event go and you know have a dinner, and it is a personal dinner. The company is not paying it. The company did not know that these five people were going out and having dinner. Even in that personal dinner, if one colleague sexually harasses the other colleague, they will have the right to approach the internal committee. Internal committee will have the jurisdiction to take the complaint as is, because they are a part of the committee. At the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the company to train them, to protect them from any kind of sexual harassment that might occur. So yes, these are the places that are covered in workplace. Next, it is internal committee. What is an internal committee? I've been talking for a long now. I've been saying that you can go to the IC, file the complaint, you can go to the local committee and file the complaint. But what is internal committee? As I've already made it clear that every company that has 10 or more employees will have an internal committee, must have an internal committee. And people who are working in an unorganized sector, that means people who are not a part of a company, even they might feel sexually harassed from any of your clients, or a company member who you're working with. Even they who do not have an internal committee can go to the local complaints committee. So yes, that's, I hope, clear to everyone. Next is the composition of the internal committee. Let's talk about who is a part of the IC, which is established at the company level. Now, the law says that it must at least have 4 members. There could be 100 members, but the minimum should be 4 members. And 50% of these members, 50% or more, okay, should be women. Then comes certain designations. The first one is the presiding officer. Now, this person is a senior member of the organization. That is a woman who is, at a senior level in the organization, whose designation is higher. So that is presiding officer for you. Next is 2 employee members, not less than 2 employee members. That means there could be more than 2 members, but not less than 2 members. And there is no gender restriction here. It could be a man, it could be a woman, anyone. And preferably they should be committed to the cause of women. The word preferably makes it not compulsory. So yes, it is preferable. Even if the criteria is not met, that's okay. To whatever extent possible, we can have these members. Next one is interesting, that is external member. दैट इज बाहर से कोई सदस्य होता है, यानी कि अ पर्सन फ्रॉम आउटसाइड ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन is also supposed to be appointed to the in the internal committee. Why do you think it is important? The answer is obvious. There shouldn't be any bias. There should be an independent member who is not a part of the organization, because there could be instances of any influence or prejudice, because if the parties are known to the internal committee members, there could be some uh, biases towards the parties, right? So that doesn't happen. And most companies prefer a lawyer. Why do you think a lawyer is important? Because internal committee, as I said, has powers akin to a civil court. So who will know the law better than a lawyer? So yes, definitely, an external member helps them to navigate, or rather, if somebody wants to, the internal committee wants to summon witnesses, how are those summons supposed to be issued? How are you supposed to call the evidences? How are you appreciate the evidences? How are you supposed to call the witnesses and all of that? uh, you know they will tell you really well. So most companies prefer a lawyer. In fact, Rainmaker also provides external member services. We have a panel of lawyers across the country. We also help organizations to onboard these external members. So please reach out to us in case you want any guidance related to the external member empanelment. Next is the quorum. Now, here, what does a quorum mean? During a hearing, let's say I'm on the IC and I have summoned a witness, okay, to testify in front of me. Now, during that hearing, at least 3 members from the internal committee must be present, and one of them has to be the presiding officer. Okay, without the presiding officer and without 3 members, okay, including the presiding officer, a hearing cannot be conducted, and even if it is conducted, that hearing will be considered as void if at all it gets challenged in the court of law later. So that's quorum. 3 members, including the presiding officer, must be present. And also, the term of these members is 3 years. So, yes, the Act prescribes for a term. Now, next is chronology. Here, I'm going to tell you now how many days you have with you to file a complaint, because it's not a perpetual timeline under the POSH Act. Here, I'll just give you the chronology. Filing a complaint. Let's say an incident of sexual harassment has occurred today with you, and that employee sexually harassed you in whatever way, and you did not file a complaint. You were like, you gave a benefit of doubt, okay, but your timeline of filing the complaint has started. Okay, so you have 3 months from today's date to file a complaint with the internal committee. However, you did not file a complaint, and let's say in the month of October, that same employee sexually harassed you again. Then your timeline of filing the complaint gets reset in the month of October. So it's 3 months from the last date of the incident. Okay, so whenever it happens, your timeline gets reset. So you have 3 months to file the complaint. Let's say within those 3 months from the last date of the incident, you did not go because you were fearing loss of job, or you had other things on your mind, you were traumatized, could not go. So you have to write the reasons in writing and give it to the internal committee that for so and so reason I could not come. And if the internal committee is convinced with your reasoning, then the internal committee has the discretion to extend it by another 3 months. So you have in total 6 months to file the complaint with the internal committee. But we always advise that go within the first 3 months, because the later 3 months are discretionary with and the discretion lies with the IC. If they are convinced with your reasonings, only then will they take the complaint. Next is inquiry into the complaint. 90 days. यानी कि अगर you have filed a complaint today, a written complaint, you also have to remember that you have to give the complaint in writing. So once it reaches the internal committee has 90 days to come to a conclusion. That means they have to investigate into the matter, inquire into the matter within 90 days and come to a conclusion. Next comes the submission of the report. That means if the committee has completed the inquiry, after the completion of the inquiry, they have 10 days to write the report, give their recommendations, and submit it to to the management. Okay, within 10 days, they have to do all of this. Then, within 60 days, the management will have to implement these orders. The management does not have the right to overturn or make any amendments to the recommendation. The recommendations of the internal committee are binding, because the internal committee has powers akin to a civil code, as I have already mentioned. So yes, this is the chronology. So you see how beautiful this law is. Within 5 months, you can get a within 5 or 6 months you can get a solution to your problem. Had you gone to the police or a criminal proceeding, it could have taken you years. There, it is not time bound, right? Here, it is a civil jurisdiction. The Bosch is under a civil jurisdiction. The IC has civil courts powers. So yes, it will be summed up within 5 or 6 months. Some people might have thought that this law could be misused, because it gives a lot of power to the internal committee and to the women to file a complaint, to look into the matter. However, there is an inbuilt provision in the Posh Act itself which talks about false and malicious complaints. If you are found guilty of filing a false complaint, that is, if you have filed a complaint to seek a revenge or to for your own personal vendetta, any intention, any malicious intention, then the act says you will be punished for filing that false complaint, and you will get the same punishments as that of the respondent had he or she been found guilty. So the same punishment will be given to you. Your but also let me clarify. Let's say you go. Let's say there was a colleague of mine, and I was sitting in a cabin with him, and there was no CCTV camera, there was no witnesses because nobody was there in the office, and that person actually sexually harassed me, but I don't have any proof. I go to the internal committee, write the complaint, they take up the complaint, and after the investigation, even they couldn't find anything on the face of this earth that can prove that I was sexually harassed by him. Will the internal committee say, Nidhi, because you couldn't prove the guilt against the accused, that is the respondent, or we couldn't find anything, we think your complaint is a false complaint. No, that cannot happen. If there is no proof against me that I have filed a false complaint, and there is no proof against the respondent that he has sexually harassed me, then both parties will be acquitted. No action will be taken against me also. Because absence of proof doesn't mean my complaint is a false complaint. If IC, that is the internal committee, starts punishing the woman for going ahead and filing a complaint and not being able to prove, then no woman will actually come forward and file the complaint, right? The idea of the law, the objective of the law is to protect the woman. So, yes, they cannot say that absence of proof means that your complaint is a false complaint. However, a false complaint is a false complaint only when it is proved during the investigation that I had filed a false complaint with some malicious intention, either. Okay, so yes, that's false complaint. Next is penal consequences. Now, here, whoever is found guilty either of committing sexual harassment or of filing a false complaint, depending on the matter, these are the punishments that are prescribed under the law. And written apology, there is termination of employment, there is censure or reprimand. Now, this means warning. Now, sometimes there could be instances where a punishment could be a warning also, depending on the degree of the offense that was committed. The punishment is given to a particular person, okay, depending on the context, depending on the severity, it differs. There could be also withholding of increment, there could be withholding of promotion, and the timeline is completely up to the internal committee, whatever they feel like. There is also compensation that is awarded to the woman for whatever trauma she had to face. For there are multiple factors based on which the amount of compensation is decided. Next comes the reformative forms of punishment. Now, community service and counseling. In India, it is a rare instance that we see community service as a punishment, but here it is under the POSH Act itself. They have mentioned that community service can also be given as a punishment. Here, the person could be sent to an NGO on Saturdays and Sundays and asked to help the people there, help the NGO, or any other community service for that matter, which is officially recognized. Maybe that would also work. Counseling, if the person, if the IC thinks that this person needs counseling also in addition to the punishments like reprimand or censure or an apology, then that can also happen. So party could be sent to the guilty party would be sent for counseling also. Now, these are the types of punishments. Next is right to appeal. If the parties to the complaint are not happy with the recommendations, or rather are aggrieved with the recommendations of the internal committee or the local committee for that matter, they have the right to file an appeal with the High Court or with the industrial tribunal, with whoever they are comfortable, or whoever has the jurisdiction, rather not the comfort but even the jurisdiction would matter. So whoever has the jurisdiction, they can file an appeal with them within 90 days from the date of the order of the internal committee. So if today the recommendations have been passed, the party who is aggrieved can go to the High Court or to the Labor Tribunal, whoever has jurisdiction, within 90 days from today's date. So, yes, that's right to appeal. Thank you so much, everyone, for being patient listeners. I hope everybody learned something new from this session. Um, I would now ask y'all, if you have any questions, please do tell me. I will address them one by one. And I hope this box here can help me in this.
Hi,
Oh,
Ms. Nidhi. Thank you
yes.
for the wonderful session. We do have a few questions. The first one is from Megha. from Abu Dhabi. Her question is there any recourse to the male facing sexual harassment at work or is wrongly accused of sexual harassment?
uh, Recourse for a man who has been sexually harassed. First, let me address that. Under the POSH Act, no. The POSH Act is meant for women. So, if a man has been sexually harassed, then they can definitely approach the HR of the company because most companies will have something against harassment. So, under harassment, the committee, that is the disciplinary committee, can take a look into the matter, or the HR themselves can take action under the code of conduct. However, IC has powers akin to a civil code. So, these are triggered only when it is a woman who has filed a complaint of sexual harassment. One part of the answer. When it comes to protecting men against a false complaint, definitely not just men, there could be false complaints against women also. Any person against whom a false complaint has been filed, and if it is found during the investigation, then definitely the person who has filed the complaint will get a punishment, the punishments that we discussed during the workshop, I mean during the session.
Yeah. The other question, I guess you have already answered, but still I'll go ahead with the question. What is the legal effect and bearing of the decision taken by internal committee? Can this be taken up in the courts of India?
So definitely, see, I can tell you, like for example, in Mumbai, let's say I am working in a company which is located in Mumbai, and if I go to the internal committee passed a decision which I am not happy with, or if I'm aggrieved by that, in Mumbai, I can definitely go ahead and file a petition in the High Court, rather an appeal in the High Court against the decision of this committee. So yes, I can go to the High Court. So likewise, every state has notified a particular appellate authority. Accordingly, I can. In Maharashtra, they have notified a couple of industrial tribunals also for this kind of an appeal. So I can approach them also. So depending on which state I am in. Yes.
Okay. There is one more question from Shalina. She asks that can a witness to the sexual harassment file a complaint?
Good, very good question. So you're a bystander, like somebody who has witnessed sexual harassment. They can file a complaint on behalf of the aggrieved woman only if that aggrieved woman has given them a written consent. Otherwise, the law says only the aggrieved woman can file a complaint. That means whoever has faced sexual harassment can file a complaint. Nobody else can file a complaint on behalf of the aggrieved woman unless there is incapacity related to physical or mental attributes, or there could be also death. Okay, so in only in these circumstances, with the written consent of the aggrieved woman, if she is physically or mentally incapacitated to file the complaint, only in those circumstances the bystander can file a complaint with the internal committee. Otherwise, let's say that person is not giving consent, okay, or written consent, you can inform the internal committee. It is your responsibility to inform the committee. However, the 90-day period, the inquiry period, that won't start unless the aggrieved herself files the complaint. But you can definitely inform the internal committee. Then internal committee can take suo moto action, that is action on their own. They can take preventive measures, or they can do something to that effect to protect everybody at the organization.
Okay. I also have one question related to this. Can I go ahead?
Please,
Uh,
please.
yeah. So the recent Arjikar case that we have heard about, I mean, can
Yes.
this Posh Act be applied over there? Because it was very much at workplace.
So definitely, in fact, this is that was a workplace, and there can be a parallel investigation by the IC also. Definitely, uh, with the written consent of the aggrieved's family, then definitely they can look into the matter. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Dalvi. I would like to thank you on behalf of Members Excellence Committee for taking out your precious time and providing a wonderful insight on the POSH Act, which I guess is very much relevant in today's work environment. Yeah.
Yes.
I would also like to thank all the members and all the participants for joining today and making this webinar a success. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
We can drop off, right? We can leave the meeting, right?